Monday. It is March 17th. Oh, yeah, it's St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. So we'll get started here, and I'm going to start off with the indices because things have been pretty volatile recently. So just going to see what's in store for the weeks to come. And with the SPY here, there was actually a pretty nice close on Friday. And that close was above this 1.618 fib at the 561.48. And this 50-week moving average is still kind of going to be your resistance for the week. So it could just be stuck in a really tight range looking for direction. So that's at 564.07. And it is a new week, so it will adjust a little bit higher today. So we'll pay attention to that new opening price of that 50 SMA. But essentially, 561, 564, that's kind of the range, but it is right around their pre-market. It's a little bit underneath it. So we'll see how it opens up because I kind of want to see if that continues to hold as support. It was a nice wick below and a nice recovery. So it was a previous resistance back in July of 2024 and also September of 2024 and finally, it back tested it, right? After all this time, it did not back test that 561.48 until now. So there we go. It's the first time, so it has potential to hold, but we got to make sure that it doesn't continue to be a resistance throughout the weeks to come. So this number right here is probably going to be the most important number throughout the whole week. So 561.48, stay above that, and then get back above this 50-week moving average right there at 564.07. So with that, we'll do the QQQ. And QQQ, we can see that the 1.414 extension, it nailed it, right? It went right through it and it held. So that is your support zone for the week. Could it go back down there this week and retest it? Of course it could, right? So there could be some weakness today, tomorrow, back down, retesting a zone. But essentially, I would like to see that zone hold as support as well. And then the 50-week moving average also is underneath it for the first time in a while at 485.30. So again, the SPY and the QQQ kind of look similar, how they're both stuck under the 50-week moving average. So that could be just a short-term loss of momentum, but eventually it's going to need to break back above it to get more bullish. So just like the SPY, it's in the same boat where it could just be in a range until it tries to get more bullish. But in the meantime, the important number to watch for the week is the 472.65 to remain optimistic for recoveries. And the IWM, this one is right at 203.07. So that's the 50% level on linear scale. But the one thing I wanted to point out is kind of a log scale thing right here where it actually did wick below this log scale 50% at 198.80, which is an interesting development there. And also it closed the week 100 and the 200-week moving average, which is great. So we have support holding for the IWM. We have a lot of confluence of support here. So it's actually maybe even in better shape than the QQQ and SPY that are looking like they are barely hanging on because they don't have too much more support underneath. But this one is support and a bounce. So I'll be looking in this 200 zone to see if it can continue to hold for the weeks to come. So everything is looking like it has potential to recover, right? Even the SPY, even the QQQ, but they are stuck, right? And they're stuck because they lost some momentum by losing the 50-week moving average. And with that said, we just got to take it one day at a time, one level at a time, and see if those levels that I mentioned can continue to hold. So I do see some requests coming out here for what is your price target for Tesla? St. Patty is green. Well, don't jinx it, Chris. Don't jinx it. Yeah, I'll jump into Tesla real quick just for you guys, and we'll start off on this chart right here. I did do a Tesla and a Palantir weekly update yesterday on YouTube and X, but essentially the biggest thing I'm looking at for Tesla this week is holding this 618 right here on log scale. The 242.44, that's really the target that I'm looking at. But as far as a price target for Tesla, I'm not really going to talk about any future price targets at the moment, simply because um, it has lost a lot of, it needs to reclaim it, right? Every single week it closed below important levels, except for last week. It finally maintained important levels. So this has the potential to stabilize now. And that's more important than any future price targets, is stabilization. Because if this can stabilize on top of the 200-week moving average, the 100, and even the 618, the 242, then I think it can finally establish a nice foundation to go higher. And as far as any kind of short-term price target, I would say we'll go to this gander here. And if this angle right here and this arc right here continue to hold as a support, then I think it has potential to, we'll go put up the Ichimoku. It has potential to do something like this, right? Maybe get closer to the cloud here, and then maybe go up the cloud. And so maybe by like June, right, it can get back to like 350s or so, right? I see that as a potential to stay on top of the cloud like that and get back right here where it lost it as support. And then essentially once this arc gets flipped back to a support, then I think it goes towards the all-time highs again. But in the meantime, I think it can be just in this giant range for months, right? For months right here, where it's the lower end of the range could be like the 230s or so, and the higher end of the range could be the 350s or so. So this whole, between these arcs right here, there is a potential to just stay in there for months to try to get its footing back, since it lost a lot of important levels. So Tesla does have potential to recover, and that 242 is essential. The 618, it's essential to really maintaining for support. Even more essential would be staying above the moving averages too, 248.13. So all I'm looking for is stabilization, guys, because as you see, the past 3 weeks before last week, it was just losing one level at a time. And finally, we got that stabilization. So don't want to worry too much right now, but I do want to focus on stabilizing at least above this 240s. But it could definitely wick through these levels again today, this week, right? Just to get another liquidity grab underneath. But I'm looking for Fridays to continue to hold above all this zone right here from 242 to 248. All right, with that said, I do see Blackberry. You got more and more chart requests there. BB, how is BB looking? So Blackberry actually finally did go back down to retest that baseline after getting rejected at the 555. Something, well, it went a little bit higher, right? It got up to $6 range, got that liquidity up above before getting rejected. So it did kind of the obvious thing, right? This 236 was a pre-resistance, and it still was. So it did the obvious thing, got rejected, but now it has potential to start to hold right there. We can put on some moving averages just to show you. Also, 200-week moving average was right there and got rejected. But essentially, that baseline is what's stopping it from going back to touch the cloud. So that baseline is at 424. And so we can use that as a gauge. If that baseline continues to hold, then it has a great chance of recovering back up here. But even if it does recover back up to the $5 range or so, it still could get rejected again and perhaps roll over and then go back down to retest the 100. So we got to be a little bit cautious in this zone because it did get here. It is at some support right now, but it could just be going to make a lower high before trying to go make a lower low first to find its new higher low from here. So we do have to probably be patient with this one. It did have a monster breakout. So taking to cool off somewhere in this zone, anywhere from 420s down to the 350s, I think would be acceptable. So I think no rush for Blackberry. No rush at all. No rush. EOS. Yeah, we'll check out EOS here. So EOS did go back down the 200-week moving average. It did kind of close a little bit below it, but it's still holding this purple angle right here. But I'm not sure if that's going to maintain. So I am going to be watching this throughout the week because it looks like it is going to open up underneath a lot of support, right? It's going to open below the 200, below the angle, below this 50%, below the baseline, below everything, right? That's where it's going to open up. So it's either going to have to recover nicely throughout the week and could be a nice green candle and close above like the 440s, or it's going to go back up and get rejected and maybe roll over to some support below, which could even fall back down to the orange level of the GAN in the 280s. So this is kind of a crucial week, I would say, for EOS because it's going to open up for the first time in a while, open up a candle below a lot of support, right? We haven't seen this in a long time. So even below opening up in a week, we haven't seen that in a long time since December. So this is could be a foreshadowing as some weakness for EOS. So I would be cautious here because the way this is opening below everything, I think it has potential to roll over to some lower levels. Maybe even the previous high back here, back in October, maybe even just a back test of that zone in the 350s. Maybe does not even need to go all the way back down to the 280s, right? It could just stop right there. But I do sense weakness for EOS, so that means I would personally be cautious with that stock. CLDI, I'll take a look at CLDI, but this is not really my style of a chart. I only have one thing to say, and that's it's basically still a falling knife. And I know Tracker tracks it a lot, but this is not really my style. So basically, it is stuck under all the weekly indicators, which kind of means it's not bullish at all still, right? It's trying to maintain a floor right here. So if you wanted to take a chance on this zone, I guess like from current to the 70s, that could be an opportunity, right? But it's got to get more bullish before any kind of attempt to go higher. But essentially, this chart, if you want to take a chance in the 70s, I guess that's okay. But this is, if it loses this zone, it has potential to continue just falling and falling and falling. So not my style because I prefer more bullish looking charts, but this one just keeps on going lower. OXY. Oxy. Yeah, let's go Oxy. So let's do the monthly chart for Oxy, just so I want to show you what it's doing inside the cloud. So this is a chart where it went up to this angle, all this area, and got rejected pretty hard back in 2022, and now it's trying to stabilize here, but it's really making doing a good job, I should say, at stabilizing because it's underneath the 50-month, underneath the blue level of my GAN and the ARCs here. So even though if it does hold the bottom of the cloud here, maybe at $42, 42.80s, I think it might be stuck looking for direction for some months to come. So it's probably going to be just in this range for some months before ultimately choosing a direction, right? Whether it wants to hold this cloud or break the arc. It's got to make a choice. And you can see up here, it chose to not break the arc back in July of 2024. It chose not to. So it could do the same thing and it could head back down to the 29s to this angle here, right? This is a real possibility where it was a breakout and a back test of that zone. So either way, even if it does break this arc, it's probably months of just dead money, really, in my opinion. So Oxy, I think what we're looking at is just range bound for months before it decides on which way it wants to go. But the likelihood now, because it's kind of like a very weak chart, it can't get above any support at all up here. The likelihood of breaking below is greater and greater, in my opinion. So I would be cautious with Oxy. And next is Run. So Sunrun is a monthly chart. That does not look good. Weekly chart also made a lower low right here. So market structure, that was a break of structure, right? Break of structure to the downside, with potential to keep going, right? This is going to be resistance every time it comes back up in the $8 range, right? The 840s, 810s, 15s, that's all going to be resistance on the way back up. But what's kind of like, my opinion, is going back to retest these lows over here, which could be anywhere from the $5 range all the way down to the 4, or even like try a double bottom back in November of 2016, right? So Sunrun, very weak. I think I would just stay away from this one myself, because every opportunity that it goes up to the $8, it probably would get rejected for some time before getting more bullish. So this is a stock I'd be cautious on, very cautious. Oh, nice to see the daily update back. Yeah, thank you, Sherry. Thank you. Ondo and Corium. Yeah, I'll do a couple of crypto for you guys. ONDO. So Ondo actually broke below levels, a lot of levels, right? So that kind of means that everything is now resistance. I was looking for this arc to hold, but it did not hold. And even that leading span A of the cloud right here did not hold. So everything above is resistance now from maybe the 90-cent zone. So what's kind of likely is, I think maybe he's going to touch this 45, not 45, this angle right here. This is the 45. This angle right here, I think it's going to touch that, which could be like another equal low, or maybe even halfway to right here, maybe the 70s, or maybe even wants to go down to the 60s or so. Yeah, to retest this zone. But nonetheless, it's just looking for a higher low, because it's not making any kind of lower low. Like all of this right here, no matter how deep it went right here, it would just be another lower low from here. So market structure would still be okay, but it just lost a lot of support. So I think it could take more time, right? I think what we're kind of looking at is it's at an inflection point. Really, if it wants to go down to this angle and hold, and bounce up, or if it goes up here and gets rejected and then comes back down here and does something like this, I think that becomes a possibility. So we'll see if this angle can hold us support, and that angle at the bottom this week is around 7 cents. So if that continues to hold, then great, it has potential to go back up. But if it gets lost, then I think it's going to go back and retest these lows down here in the high 50s. And Corium. Yeah, so Corium lost a lot of support too. So we'll have to say that the cloud is your weekly support, because it broke through all of this important stuff right here, and now it probably wants to gravitate a little bit lower. So I'd say at least 8 cents is now your support, the bottom of the cloud, looking for a higher low, but it's trying to get more bullish, but essentially it's got to get back above the 13 cents here before any chance of getting going higher. But until then, I think it's just stuck, and it might gravitate a little lower before higher. NU chart. All right, NU. New holdings. So new held that 100-week moving average perfectly right there, and that was support. So it did recover nicely. We saw a big breakout back up here, trying to get above all that stuff. But you know what? The final destination looked like it was the 100-week moving average, and that's 1039. So that finally hit 2 weeks in a row, and now we are stuck in the cloud. So what is price going to do? I think it's going to be stuck for some time, right? It'll be stuck between maybe the 1230s up here, maybe even the 60s, and maybe just do something like this. But it has potential to stay inside this cloud for a while until it wants to get more bullish. But in the meantime, your support is still going to be down here in the $11 range, and your resistance is all going to be up here in the 1230s, 1240s, 1250s. So it's probably going to be stuck for some weeks in that range before making a decision if it wants to stay in the cloud and go higher, or even maybe if it doesn't want to stay in the cloud, it could even retest this 1050 level again to try to hold it as support. So ideally, to remain more and more bullish on this, it needs to stay inside this weekly cloud, right? And eventually break above it. 242 is your average. Okay, pretty close to current price. Nvidia is getting ready to crash. Is it? Well, it's a loss of momentum still, right? But this has potential, right? It has potential to be more and more bullish if the month closes out strong. So I'm looking at Nvidia here, and I'm looking at this 50-week moving average, and I see, great, it's going to open the week above it. That's actually bullish. Also, I look at this green level of the GAN here. That's kind of the same price. And yeah, it looks like it's going to open the week above it, which means it's probably going to go up to the conversion and the base up here around 126, 127, 128, that zone, where it might be running into some challenges. So is it about to crash? Well, I'm paying attention to the monthly chart here, and I'm paying attention to this monthly conversion line at 121.91. And I definitely need to see this monthly candle close back above it to maintain its bottom, right? Because we have not seen a monthly close below it since back in December of 2022. So with Nvidia, very essential to maintain this momentum. Otherwise, it will gravitate lower. So I think it's too soon to say if it's ready to go lower or crash or not, because monthly momentum still has potential to hold. And that only thing you need to watch, I guess, throughout the whole month is 121.91. Right. And if that continues to hold, and also we go to the weekly chart, if the weekly cloud continues to hold, then it's not going to crash just yet. It needs to start getting back above the 128, 129 right here and to go higher. So what we can just establish from this is it's just range bound. It's in a big range actually between like the cloud and the 110s and the 130s, right? That like a $20 range. So it just can do that throughout the whole month until the end of the month. We see where it actually closes the monthly candle. So it's at a very important inflection point. I would say that it needs to start showing some bullish momentum, or it could be time to roll over. But it's not time yet. It's just be cautious here because it has potential to start closing below these monthly indicators at the 121.91. All right. With that said, I see a lot more here. Coin? Yeah, we'll do some Coinbase. So Coinbase, we're gonna go check the weekly chart first, and here is the weekly cloud. It is around 176, the bottom of that cloud, and then we got the 100-week moving average below at 173. So is it going to do something like this where it wants to maybe go back up to the arc up here, the 190s, then maybe go back down and touch the 100-week moving average in the weeks to come? Kind of do something like where it went below the cloud a little bit, and then go higher like that, something. Or could it do something like that possibly, right? But nonetheless, I like this kind of style, right? I like this chart because it's higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Even though it does a lot lower than expected sometimes, the market structure of it all still is pretty bullish. And I think this zone really has a high probability of holding. So the bottom of the cloud, 176, 177. The 100-week is at 173. And we can just take a look too at that fib level. Let me just pull up my fibs one more time. And the fibs right here, It does need to get back above this 197.27 for any kind of future bullish development. So we can just see that right now it's stuck in between a range, in between the 197 and the 170s down here. So this is the wide range that it can be stuck in. But ideally, where I would like to see it close the month would be back above this monthly baseline right here. And that monthly baseline is at 198.09. So right up there, which is above that 702. Closing back above that would be a bullish scenario for coin at the end of March. That's really what I'm focused on. No matter what it does throughout the month, if it goes lower, higher, I still want to see if it can close back above this 198.09. And yeah, we'll do Sofi here. So Sofi, we can see that price is holding this 45-degree angle, holding this 50% fib. That is really the target to maintain, and that's really the only thing, right? So this is also a wide range between the 1095 and the 1369, with even more, a little bit resistance below with the baseline, which is $13. So all this was doing was looking for a higher low. Perhaps this already hit. And if that already is your higher, you can start establishing a base and continue its journey higher. So yeah, Sofi looks really bullish. Just got to be patient with it because it stay in this range for some weeks or a little bit longer before trying to get more bullish. And can I do CLSK? Yeah, I'll just do a couple more. I think when I do it myself, I'm going to just end these at around 9 a.m. Eastern to get ready for my private live streams for my tier 4 on Patreon. So I'll do a few more here first. And CLSK, what I'm looking at is these weekly candles, how they're really staying in a range right here. Every single weekly candle is kind of in the same low. So that's what I'm really looking at trying to hold. I'm trying to look at that what is that? This low right here was 722. So I'm looking at this to hold. I don't want to see more lower lows because if there's like another lower low, then the potential to go back down to this 643 right here, the 50% level is there. So we can just see right now it's in a range where the 200-week moving average is 930 and that 722 is your low. So it'll probably just stay in this range until Bitcoin decides really what it wants to do. Everything is really deciding on what Bitcoin wants to do ultimately, right? And yeah, I'll do a couple more. IonQ. And IonQ, it held this orange level, held the 50-week moving average perfectly, and now price is going back up to resistance of the 886, which is right around the $27 zone. So that 27 bucks is going to be resistance, and your support still is going to be the 2112, 2117, the 786 for weekly support and resistance. So it can do anything within that range. But if you were really looking for an opportunity, it would have been this backport and zone right here. Now that it's going up higher, you're just chasing resistance up here. So I'd just be a little bit more cautious with that. So it does look like it did find its higher low. And now I think it might be just consolidating in this range for some weeks, getting closer to the cloud before trying to break above that $27 zone. So once this 886 is broken above, then I think it has a potential to be more bullish. But until then, I think it's just going to be stuck in a wide range right here, 21 to 27. And lastly, the last one I'll do is MSTR here. So also this is relying on Bitcoin, but MSTR had a great week last week. It was up 4%, but it did recover a lot from the lows down here. But it only recovered right to resistance, and that resistance up here is 301. Then you have more resistance up here at 318s. But I'm really looking to flip this blue level of my GAN back to a support, and that is 301, 302. And that's really the only focus for me. But in the meantime, yeah, this is still also in a very giant range from the 245s all the way up to the 300s. This is your range really, and it could stay in that range. And if Bitcoin goes lower, then yeah, of course, MicroStrategy could even go back down and retest the 245. But I think this range is necessary to break out of for it to get more bullish. And once it gets back above it, then I think it goes back to the 340 up here and then spend some time there and trying to get more bullish. But if it's just buying time to get to the cloud, this weekly cloud over here is in May of 2025. So that could take some more months before getting more bullish for MSTR. But in the meantime, it's stuck, right? Stuck under 301, and your support is still way down here for the weekly candle. And again, it's all depending on Bitcoin direction. And right now, I'll just end it on Bitcoin right here. And Bitcoin is still under resistance. It's underneath this 83,558. It closed the week yesterday on baseline and that. So every time it gets to 83,500, this is getting rejected. And so these crypto related stocks, they're not going to do anything until Bitcoin can break above this resistance. And so far, it's struggling a lot. So this is the only focus for me for Bitcoin. It's must break this 83.5, 84,000 zone because the baseline is right now at 84,112. So until then, is just right at resistance right now. So I would be cautious here, and I would not be chasing like the MSTR right now just because it had a good run last week and it's at resistance basically right now. So just be a little bit cautious here until we can see Bitcoin break out. So with that said, guys, I'll see you tomorrow for another Mattsby's morning. But in the meantime, I'm going to go prepare for my live stream for the tier 4. So have a great rest of the day. See you later.